Welcome, guys. Welcome to Driving Business Through Design, co-hosted by the brandlab.io and Discover Gray. So I'm your moderator. My name is Anson Wu. So in this panel discussion, we want to talk about good design, how good design drive business, right? So no longer a tail company who fail leveraging their design and brand equity will not be able to build trust with their customers, let alone developing a brand loyalty with them. So what makes a great design, and how can you get ahead? How can you get a head start in building the right first impression for your customers? So join this panel discussion. So we have three design expert rock stars, in my opinion, who have conquered this difficult task and learned not only how they did it, but how to navigate the roadblocks they encounter and advice on what they have suggested to many of their successful clients. So again, my name is Anson Wu. I am the Chief Creative Officer from Discover Gray. For many of you know Discover already, but for ones of you don't, Discover Gray is a lifestyle brand for the entrepreneur culture. We are a community for founders, hustlers, game changers. So check us out, discovergray.com. We're super excited to have our panelists joining us. So first, co-founders and Chief Creative Officer of Psycholofia, Ari Zuzak. How are you doing?
You can butcher my last name perfectly fine, because honestly, I still don't know how to pronounce my last name. Hey, totally okay. Just call me Ari. It's a Polish last name, so it's definitely not built in my tongue. Just call me Ari. Perfectly okay. Hey, everyone.
Thank you for making my job easier.
Totally, Anson. I am actually so excited on this one because I know we've been planning about this panel for so long. I think even earlier this year, and we were just so excited to finally bring this to our communities in Chicago. And we were gonna partner up with We Work in Kinsey, I believe, and it was just all already set up, right? And then COVID-19 happens and all of the stay-at-home order is happening. So we were just kind of thinking about, can we still bring this out to our audience and just like discuss this via virtual panel instead. So this is finally happening. So yay, I'm so excited that all of you are here today. Yes, and my name is Ari Zuzak. I am the co-founder and chief creative officer at Psycholofia. We are a digital brand consultancy, primarily helping women-led technology companies building their brands, making sure that their goal in business and in branding as well as marketing are integrated within their companies, and making sure that their online channels also, align with where they want it to go, and make sure that everything is clear and have a success way to grow in the future. So that's us. And in terms of like the brandlab.io, this is actually our education wing for the community, where we wanted this to be a source for digital learning and expert knowledge on branding, marketing, as well as technology. You can kind of see that those are the three main things that we're super passionate about. And we hope that we can bring more learning experience like this, even though it's virtual. We hope that we'll still be able to invite more amazing people around these three areas and expertise so that they can share their knowledge with you. And
you also founded Creative Women's.
Oh my goodness. Right? Yes, and there's that too.
Right?
I'm just gonna talk about that one maybe just very shortly. So Creative Women's Co is our community project for women in the Chicagoland area around like creative entrepreneurship. We wanted that particular project to be I think like a settings or like a more like an intimate gatherings for women creative entrepreneurs to just like meet with each other and learn from one another. I had my fair share of like, women who just trying to bring you down, that kind of thing. It's just not what I want it to be in the future. Obviously, I want to make sure that all of us are really supporting one another. And I feel like, in a sense, Creative Women's Co is really a place for you to meet with other creative women who are really looking forward to grow together and have this mentality that we are here to support one another. But yeah, check it out if you're actually curious about it at creativewomens.co.
Thank you. Next, we have Maxwell Billings, founder and brand designer at 87 which partner with CEO executives and solopreneurs to design modern brands that connects with people. After nearly a decade as an advertising critic working with multi-million-dollar brands, campaigns, and startups, Maxwell understands that people don't fall in love with business, they fall in love with personalities. This is great. His Studio 87 design brands that connect people to grow business. Welcome, Max. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Anson. Thank you guys so much for having me on the panel here. I'm thrilled to be here to share what I know about this weird sort of nebulous thing called branding that we're all trying to do.
Well, we look forward to it. And this word branding, it's been tossed around so many times. I'm super intrigued what your definition is too.
Sure. I mean, it's, I like to pull the definition from Marty Neumeier, where a brand is essentially your gut feeling or initial reaction you have regarding a business or organization. So, when I say Mercedes-Benz, you think something immediately. When I say, the new Coke, you think of something immediately. Every brand has some sort of emotional connection. And what my studio does and what every branding professional tries to do is develop what is that feeling? What is that story? So, we'll get into it, I'm sure, a bit more tonight, but a lot of what we consider branding and how companies present themselves, a lot of that has to do with, way more than just the visuals. Most of it is things like strategy, storytelling, and positioning, and things like that.
Well, we're super excited. Welcome for joining. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next, we have Lydia Roscoe, brand strategist, creative marketers, which with Lydia Roscoe Design, which empowers organizations and entrepreneurs to make change through strategic branding and marketing design. With over 2 decades of experience, Lydia is known not only for her ability to express a client's mission, but also for her friendly, approachable working style. She blogs about branding and marketing and leads workshops for nonprofit and small businesses. Lydia, you have been busy.
Yes, definitely. It's an interesting time for nonprofits and higher ed and all of those organizations that I work with right now. So yes, we're doing a lot of pivoting to digital events and improving digital branding. So yes.
That's great. We're super interested to see how nonprofits and small businesses are dealing with unusual time and how they're doing with branding as well.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
All right. Next, I think we'll have a 5-minute breakout room for our attendees to get to know each other a little better. Ari, you want to get that process started?
Yes, I'm gonna get that started for all of us now.
The breakout session was fantastic. I make 2 new friends already. I love it. This is a great idea.
That's cool.
So next, guys, we're gonna give each panelist 5 minutes so they can share their insights. And this is super interesting because each one of them has their special background and their specialties within design too. Ari, can you kick us off with the insight?
Yep, I will be sharing my screen real quick. 1 second. All right, let me share my screen. Can everybody see my screen? Yeah? Okay, cool. All right, so I think my 5 minutes insights is literally around like how do you leverage design and brand equity for your business, right? So talking about that, I'm gonna skip my introduction because you guys already know who I am by now. I want to really ask everybody a question. So you don't have to answer this question right away since we only have 5 minutes, but really think about like who or what is your favorite brand, right? Why do you follow or even go to and buy from them? And what really makes them stand out or even memorable and you recognize them right away. So think about it. And I feel like in a sense that really show us how important branding and design really is. For branding, it gives us, the customers, a visual label of a certain business, whether it's like a computer or even like your day-to-day brand that you typically use maybe in the house for cooking utensils, or even like the type of shoes and things like that. It all comes down to like how design really enhanced your brand memory and the recognition for that particular company. So here's a quick example. Say that you're craving for dates. I personally don't like dates at all, but hey, some people do, right? So this is the ugliest thing that I can really think of, but if you turn it around with design, it becomes something that is so exciting to see. So you're gonna see this real quickly. Pretend that you're craving for dates, right? And you're presented with these when you actually go to either Amazon or buy it online on other marketplaces, or even in an actual store. If you go to an actual store and you see these two different packaging for just dates, which one will you buy? I personally will buy the second one, simply because it feels like it catered to me. I'm a person who really loves seeing art, and I appreciate art so much, and I feel like, in a sense, I want something that gives me the most experience possible. And I think in a way, that particular brand really showcased that. But for some other people that really value, hey, I don't really care how it looks, I just want the dates, then they will might as well just select the left one, right? So I think thinking about like, how do you really cater a certain brand, and how do you cater a certain messaging to your audience, it's going to depend on who you're really targeting. Maybe you really are targeting people who don't really care about the look of the design, or they don't really care about the experience. They just want the meat, right? Or the product itself. Or maybe you do really care about certain type of people who really value the experience over the actual product itself. Obviously, the product should be amazing as well, but it just adding an extra level of, I guess, like value to it, so that people can look at it right away, they recognize the brand, and they immediately feel like attracted to it. So with that, actually, I want you to also to think about like the way a consumer perceives design. It really motivates us, the consumer, right, to have a positive impression about a brand and also stay with it. So think about that. And if you really like look at bigger brands like either Mercedes or like Nike and Apple, there's a very particular impression that they are really showcasing through their brand and invested throughout the design equity that they have, so that we as a consumer, when we see them on the marketplace, we know how we want to really get associated with those particular brands, how we are feeling about those particular brands. So I guess in a sense, it just leaves all of those back into like how you're gonna get your investment back by increasing your sales and your bottom line. I guess the last thing that I definitely want to leave us with is that branding, when it's done right, it really does help you, set apart from your competitors, not just standing out, but literally setting you as the differentiator between brand A and brand B, and then creates emotional bond and customer loyalty, and leaving a positive impression, as well as winning the attention of your ideal customer. And that's pretty much what I have. If you have any other thoughts that come to mind, feel free to add it to the chat, and we will discuss that on the Q&A session. That's it.
Thanks, Ari. That was super helpful. I can't believe you squeezed everything, so much content into 5 minutes. That was great.
You're welcome.
Next, we have Max. Max, you've been with big agency experience. Now you're a founder of your own studio. We'd love to hear your thoughts, your insights when it comes to driving business through design.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my unique perspective that I kind of bring to the table is that, I've worked on, any number of scale of brands from big to small. One of the things that is true throughout all of them is really core fundamental sort of pieces of how you build a brand story, right? It starts with, what is it you do? How do you do it? And why do you do it differently than everybody else? Regardless of the scale of your organization or business or whatever, those sort of elements always ring true. If you're a mom and pop florist, all the way to if you're a huge multi-million-dollar industry. To just share my screen real quick here. One moment. Never mind. I'll just go without it. So essentially, the sort of the magic behind branding and the magic behind storytelling is the fact that you are creating a narrative around something that is pretty much the same as what your competition is selling, right? A shirt from Givenchy that goes for $600 is fundamentally the same as a Hanes t-shirt for $5. What really separates those two? It's not that the logo design is the greatest logo design ever. It's the fact that there's a story and feeling associated with one that's able to charge a massive markup versus the other where you're just kind of like, man, I can probably pay for it with what's in my wallet. The key to that from a business perspective, beyond just sort of the, standing on the pulpit of design and talking about how great things are when everything looks together and is cohesive, and using Ari's example, it's like boom, immediately gravitated toward the better designed thing just because it's more aesthetically pleasing. But there's actual sort of metrics behind that. Lucid Press did a study 3-4 years ago that found that customer purchasing intent goes up 23% when you present consistently. Doesn't mean that you have to present beautifully. Doesn't mean that you have to present like you paid, an arm and a leg with a design agency. But if you present your story consistently, regardless of what channels you're in, you're going to create a cohesive story. And it goes right back to, you're starting to create that feeling that people have when they interact with you. Oh, there we go. I know, the dog. But so yeah, so the analogy I like to use for that is going to a party. So if you show up at a party and you're in an amazing dress or suit, whatever you decide to wear there, that's sort of how that's how you present yourself. That's your identity. Now, beyond that, your story, your where you went to school, your family, what you do for work, all those things, that's sort of your brand story. You can present yourself very well in a Tom Ford, Vera Wang gown, whatever it may be. But if you open your mouth and just, forgive the language, sound like an asshole, then it all goes out the window. It doesn't matter how good you look. So that's why brand story and strategy are really at the core and key as you build your brand, regardless of scale, from giant agents or from giant clients all the way down to local businesses. The question remains the same. What is the story we're trying to tell to our customers?
Got it. Storytelling is super important. And I love all the fashion brands reference. Speaking my language. Thanks, Max. Thanks for joining us and sharing. Lydia, it's your turn to share your insights. We'd love to hear your thoughts on any work of nonprofits, small businesses, and in our audience, I'm sure there are a lot of nonprofit organizers and small business owners. Can you share with us?
Yes. So as you mentioned, I do work with nonprofits, associations, higher ed, and with those organizations, well, first of all, design can be a tough sell with some of these organizations. And mainly it's budget reasons. If it's a smaller organization, they've got smaller budgets. And then with nonprofits, they also have to be aware that their marketing materials don't look too quote unquote expensive or slick in order to, they don't want their audience to think, oh, they're spending all the money that we're giving them, on these crazy expensive marketing materials. So there's definitely some challenges there that I face with my clients as far as, selling them on the design, on the value of the design. Luckily, I've been in this for enough years that I feel like I'm pretty good at it. I'm kind of explaining the value to them. But basically, the way the process goes with these types of organizations is that we use the branding and the design. The goals are to make the connection, maybe an initial connection, show the impact of the organization, and then inspire someone to take action. So those are the design goals. The actual goals of the organization might vary. It might be, they want to increase their donations, get new donors, attract new members if they're an association. But it's all about, really making that connection. And I guess Max had touched upon that quote from Marty Neumeier, which I love as well, which is that, branding is really an emotion. And this is something that I always talk to my nonprofits about, that you do need to make that emotional connection in order for someone to, to resonate with them and to make them want to do what you want them to do, whether it's to donate, whether it's to share a social media post, volunteer with your organization. Like I said, a lot of what I end up doing is kind of preaching that value of design. And luckily I have a couple of great stories from clients where they did see such an amazing ROI that exceeded their expectations. There was a fundraising campaign that we did. And, again, the design was a tough sell for the bosses, but in the end, they had 50% of donors that did not give in the previous year. 24% of them were first-time donors, which is tough to get. And they met their goals. They wanted to better engage with their existing donors and to attract those new donors. So yes, the value of design, it's nice to actually get that ROI from clients and keep note of it, so that if you do have somebody that you're kind of having a tough time selling it to, you can say, hey, listen, you will, get new donations out, or you will, attract new members.
Yeah, that's super helpful. I think having a nice case studies, right? Almost.
Yes.
That show the numbers, the business impact can really help further that story, advance the story for next sales. That's fantastic, guys. Thank you so much for sharing. So next section is I'm gonna ask a couple questions for our panelists to discuss. But if you guys have any follow-up questions or your question of your own, drop them into the chat box or question box, and we'll monitor it. I will bring it up whenever we can. All right. So the first question, it's really a general questions, and I think that open up for everybody, all the panelists. What are some common mistakes, guys, that you see entrepreneurs or business owners make when they're designing their products or websites or any other marketing materials out there? Any of you want to take the first shot at this?
Sure, I'm happy to take a stab at it. I think the biggest thing for me is a lack of real understanding of how you're presenting yourself. What I mean by that is sort of seeing the forest through the trees. You've been obsessed with your business. It's been in the back of your head. It's been the thing that you've thought about a lot. Very rare is it that you're able to actively sort of gut check that, right? The phrase, it's an industry term and we use it at the studio a lot, but you call bullshit on it, right? You say, I don't know if that's necessarily true. And I know it feels good. I know it feels right, but is that really accurate? And part of that comes into, who we really trying to talk to. What is it our product or service really does? And having that sort of outside perspective really helps lead you up the mountain, right? Bringing in some, any of the panelists here, or, any outside sort of contributor or, consultant, it basically acts as a Sherpa to lead you up the mountain.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let me ask you a follow-up question on this, Max. So we talk about from the entrepreneur perspective, but what about from a designer perspective? When we engage with a business owner or entrepreneur, when you see they're in their head too much, how do you call their bullshit without losing the account?
I mean, to me, that it really comes from a place of trust, right? Because a lot of it is checking ego. Not only with us as the designers, which most of us are some kind of artist in some way, shape, or form. So there's that sort of like artistic pride, defend your creation type thing. But also too, there's the ego of the business owner. So I actually love when I square off with my clients, because I don't care. I don't, I've kind of learned through my experience to check that ego. And if you do have a disagreement, it's not so much you're right versus I'm wrong. It's I'm coming to the table with information that I think could benefit both of us because we're both trying to do the same thing, make a great brand, project, whatever to make money. But, you know, I'm coming to the table with a perspective. If you don't want to listen to it, that's okay. But these are facts. These are the things you should do. And, you know, our job is to try to present those in the most sort of, you know, easily digestible way possible.
Good, very good tip. I think reminding them why they're hiring a designer, the value of a designer is super important. Spell. Anybody else want to hop on, Ari?
Yeah, I think what Max had said, I mean, that was pretty much covers. And I think in a way, what I would also tend to see is not really so much of a mistake, in my opinion. It's mainly in terms of like, you know, bringing these clients just like come to our level, like the customer's level, to understand like, okay, all of the things that you have is amazing, but you're the only one who knows that. Your customer don't know that yet. And honestly, they don't care right now because they don't know you yet. And I think until they got to a point of understanding, okay, all of these features, all of these amazing products that I have, what is the benefit for my audience, right? Until they can answer that question, I think it's going to be a little bit challenging for them to really utilize all of the marketing collaterals or the branding and everything that they want to integrate within their business to move forward to really like, you know, gain those tractions. So I guess that would be one thing that I would definitely share and wanted to, you know, have everyone pay that attention a little bit closer, because you can have the most amazing features, but if you can't like identify all the benefits that will help your customer solve those particular problems and voicing that out and communicating it to them, they're not going to buy, right? So yeah,
And I think reminding them, you know, they have customers too, and they should listen to their customers as well. It's great insight. Lydia, what do you think on the nonprofit perspective? What kind of common mistakes or misstep that they make usually when come to design?
Well, one of the things that I see quite often is there's a lot of inconsistency. So with nonprofits especially, they have multiple audiences. They're speaking to the people that they serve. They're also speaking to their donors, to volunteers, supporters, and they're trying to speak to all of these people, you know, in one marketing piece, or they have too many different marketing pieces. Their messaging is different. So one of the things that I do see quite often is that inconsistency, where we need to kind of pull it all together, craft messaging for each of those audience personas, you know, specific to them, have a call to action that's specific for each of those personas, and make sure that we're connecting with them, you know, on a personal level, rather than just speaking kind of generically to this big audience. That's one of the things that I definitely see quite often. And I also see with small businesses, I see a lot of people that just want to jump in and they're super excited about their new business. And they say, I need a logo. Who can make me a logo? And they don't think about, you know, what is your mission? What is your vision? Who is your audience? You know, those are those exercises I go through with people quite often, where it's like, who's your audience? Well, anybody who buys my product, you know. So they don't have all of that clear before, you know, but they want the logo, they want the brand. So I try to encourage people, do some thinking. You know, if you can hire someone to go through the brand strategy with you, wonderful. If not, you know, just do some thinking on your mission, your vision, your audience, and where you want to position your brand in the marketplace or in the industry. So go at it from a more strategic place rather than just jumping right in.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs are really action driven. I totally get that too. And sometimes not the best action to take, right? Sometimes it's just to take a step back and think about what you really try to build here. Absolutely.
Yep.
I want to switch the script a little bit. Because all three of you have decades of experience in design, right? But for the non-designers out there, that people maybe in finance, business owners, tech people, you know, they don't think of themselves as a designer. How can non-designer get better at evaluating design, get better at spotting a good design versus a bad design. I'm not sure about you guys, but when I was presenting my designers, my creative ideas, like clients, usually they don't pick the best idea that I think they should pick. They always pick the ideas, oh, not that one, right? So that's speaking for myself. So what recommendation would you have for non-design to get better at judging a good design?
I think looking at a lot of design helps. I think, if you can expose yourself to, now, I mean, everything is online. I used to, in my early design days, I subscribed to a couple of design magazines and, would flip through those every month to kind of get a sense of, your own aesthetic, what you find aesthetically pleasing, what you think and know is good. So in my opinion, I think, kind of immersing yourself in design and looking at as much design as you can. If you go to the grocery store, observe the packaging that kind of stands out for you. Or if you're, watching, even like just scrolling through Netflix, there are so many really great graphics, that are out there that I think you can become inspired by just by, looking around a little bit.
Yeah.
I second that. Definitely. Another thing for me would be like white space. I feel like in a sense, when you spot something so clean and simple, I think it always goes straight to the point, right? And I feel like that has become one of the guidelines that I would use for any of our designs, really. And for like comparing one design to another is also a really good exercise. And then ask yourself, like, why do I feel attracted to this design? And really just analyze, why do I feel like I'm not so interested on the other design? What is the difference? Is it the spacing? Is it like a different font? Is it a different color? Is that, are those some of the areas that you are thinking because specific colors give you different feeling, or maybe like specific fonts that they're using give you certain feelings? So I think in a way, there's a lot within design sometimes, and I don't think it's really easy for non-designers to really unpack that, but practicing it, just like what Lydia mentioned, seeing like the trends in design these days as well, just like, as much as you can, keep it simple, keep it straight to the point, and keeping consistency. If you have like specific fonts or colors that you're using throughout your brand, just keep it within those for now. Don't try to experiment just yet until you feel comfortable, and explore like your ideas in terms of like what makes you feel attracted to certain design, and really think about like, will this make sense for my brand as well, or for my company? Because I feel like when you start trying to, mix and match in design without consulting it with a professional, that would end up badly sometimes, right? Because you don't want to scare your own audience. Like, what is going on with this brand right now? Like, they used blue before, but now they use like all black, like Batman. It's like, that's completely different tone now. So yeah.
It feels like a knockoff sometimes, right? Like when the design is off, you're like, is it that company? Like you have question in your mind, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Max, anything you want to add?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times when we talk about design and branding and things like that, it's very quick to go to sort of the executional visual aspect of it, but that's sort of the easy flashy thing. The part that we never present to clients is essentially the part where we're struggling at 2 a.m. to come up with the answer. And one of the things that I would tell non-designers to do more is ask more questions. Across the board, just question more, regardless of if you're in a presentation and someone's presenting something. Ask them why. Ask them, why didn't you do this? Because the disturbing thing is that we've all thought about it. We have to think about it because it's our job. And if you just say, oh, because it looked good, you should get out of the room. That's not a good enough business answer, especially if you want to, from a designer standpoint, if you want to work with bigger clients. So to me, I really appreciate when clients sort of pressure test the studio's decision-making with their own questions, because then not only is it collaborative, but also it's an element of, hey, is this truly the right decision? but also too, I want to learn a little bit more so I can be a better client. So, to me, asking questions is always sort of a good overall answer for like, how can you change the game and be better?
That's fascinating. So you're actually encouraging non-designer and clients to be more curious, right?
Yeah,
And try to
absolutely.
find out the reasons and the logic behind a specific design decisions.
Yeah.
That's really good insights. So with the same path, when designers or agency, they pitch new businesses, sometimes you encounter people think that, hey, my industry is not that sexy, right? I'm in B2B, I'm in recycling, I'm in this. I don't need design, right? I just need just a simple pop-up. I can do it myself. We don't sell fashion. We don't sell, fancy stuff. What do you say to those entrepreneur business owner that think that in the industry that's not sexy for design? Go ahead,
Max, I found that you can go ahead and take it first. I feel like
I laugh because this has been sort of I love getting this question because it's something that I've been combating for probably the last 3 years. The less sexy you are, the greater the opportunity there is for design to fundamentally change your business. Let's say you are B2B. Let's say you are, God forbid, a commodity. Nothing is really different between us and our competitor. Price-wise, the same. We get our same materials from the same spot, whatever. Right. So why should someone choose you? And then a lot of times it just turns into crickets, or it turns into, well, we offer the best prices, or our product is better. It's like, well, bullshit. You said you're a commodity, and your competitor can just lower their price temporarily. So what really sets you apart? Regardless of what industry you're in, there's a story there. And if you can tell that business story, you're going to attract new types of people who can become much more loyal to you, regardless of what you're in.
It's really good insight. Yeah.
Yeah, that is really good. And I feel like from my end, in terms of what I wanted to share is that, think of that example I shared earlier about dates. I mean, dates is not sexy, at least in my opinion. And also think about like trash can company, or even like a truck for garbage and things like that, right? Here in Evanston, recently I start seeing a very different garbage truck, and it's all white, and they only have a very simple stickers, no plastic, because it's the garbage truck that pick up the recycling items from houses. And that is on its own, honestly, it does not look like any garbage truck. It's not yucky, it's not disgusting, it's honestly pretty nice and clean. So I think what I want to try to say is that design can change anything, really. I feel like it has a really big power in terms of like, if you use it correctly and you really understand what message you want to voice out to your audience, it will capture that intention that you wanted to share to your audience, regardless of like, again, how unsexy it is or how ugly is that particular industry.
Yeah.
Also, all right, I don't mean to step up, but I just got to defend the date industry here, and I can't let any more go. I can't let you trash it. Wrap it in bacon, beautiful. I just had to chime in with that.
Somebody loves dates. There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Lydia, do you have anything you want to add to this question?
I do. It's funny. I keep laughing because I have a client that is completely outside of the scope of what I told you my client base is. And they are a shoe care manufacturer and distributor. And, what would be considered a very unsexy industry, and a very, how would I say it? Like an industry that doesn't do a lot of marketing. These other distributors, they literally just send out a flyer, that's been photocopied. Like that's kind of been their MO. So this client that I've been working with, they wanted to really step it up a notch, and we did. And we really kind of built their marketing presence up from nothing, from having like 0 Facebook followers to creating a presence on Instagram. I discovered that though this shoe care industry, it's kind of an old school industry, there's also this whole young generation of people who are opening up shops and they're customizing sneakers. And, you know, we are able to kind of reach out to that audience because we have more of a brand presence now. And we're sending out, you know, flyers that are really nicely designed, and we've got a presence on Instagram. So it's been kind of fun, you know, seeing how you can take that so-called unsexy industry and elevate it with design and really make a connection with people.
Yeah, that's a really good thought. And don't underestimate those sneakerheads. I mean, they're diehard, yeah, for sure. I
Totally. And they're doing some really cool stuff. Yeah. Now that I've been following them on Instagram for, you know, work reasons, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, for sure it is. So, you know, I want to dive a little deeper into the design process. You know, for myself, speaking for myself, I know when I start designing something, working with designers, there's like a file name called final, and then final, and then final, right? So for all of us, designer and people that work with designer, how do you decide something is good enough? How do you call it, this is final? I know we're driven by deadline, but other than that, is there any way to know that, all right, it's time to stop, put the pencil down, right? What do you guys think? Anybody?
I guess I'll start. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you know, sometimes it's really just that gut feeling. Like sometimes like I see, you know, a logo and I'm like, this is the one. And more than likely or not, it is. And I usually put my favorite concept first because I want them, you know, somehow, you know, to choose that. But yeah, a lot of times it's a gut feeling or a deadline, as you mentioned. Like, I gotta stop.
I feel like it's the same with Lydia as well. It really is your gut feeling. I feel like as a designer, you have this vision when you talk with, you know, business owners or even like your client to really understand like, what do they really need, right? Where do they really want to go in the future? And how can you translate all that vision into something that they can see visually? And I think that's the power with design. And when you actually do work with a designer that really gets it, you can kind of see it in their draft. And they typically would only present the best options, typically around 3. 3 is a really good number. And if you are being presented with, say, 9 options, that's a little bit tricky because it just shows how much that this particular designer can't really, you know, capture the best vision that they have for your business, right? The reason that they would give you 3 options is to really think about, you know, which one of these 3 best design that really fits your vision. I think in a way, I almost feel like when you spot those and the you know, the items that you are being presented by the designer, it get clicked right away because both of you are communicating, you know, the right ideas, the right goals, and being translated very well by that particular designer.
Yeah, spot on. Max, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you talk about sort of like when do you feel like you're done? When do you feel like it's pencils down? I always like to use the analogy when it comes to branding and design of it's very similar to a house. If you're building a house with an architect, you think to yourself, okay, are we going to be having kids in the future? Do we want a basketball court? Is that something we're into? You're going to work until you get to a point where either you run out of time, you run out of money, or you're just like, you know what, it's good enough. And after that, you're going to have to do house maintenance and things like that to keep it going. So one of the things that I tell young designers and I tell, you know, business owners is that, you know, don't let oh gosh, all of my analogies just completely like Three Stooges clogged up in my brain and I completely froze up. But don't, you know, something that's good enough checks the box. You can still maintain down the road. You can still revise. Take that sort of like etched in stone pressure off yourself, where if you put something out there that you feel is, let's say, 80% of where it could be, nobody's going to know that. You're going to have to live with it. And that's sort of the designer artistic client curse of like, oh, it could have been better, but the people out in the world don't know that. So just remember that and get them on the next one. So take a little bit of that pressure off of feeling like, oh my God, it needs to be perfect by this deadline.
Right. That's a good point. I want to ask a follow-up question on this too, asking for all designers out there. So I already talked about, presenting around 3 designs, per pitch or per presentation, and we talk about when to stop. How do you guys deal with revisions from client? When you have a difficult client, let's say that keep asking for revisions. I'm not sure if you guys seen it before. I've certainly encountered, I might have been one myself in the past. So how do you set the expectation and how do you manage that?
I have it in my contract that they are able to make, I think it's 2 rounds in general. And then after that, then I start billing hourly. So that usually keeps things in check because there are some clients that either their draft, wasn't edited, or they're kind of using your design as their, draft. So for the most part, I haven't had people really, stretch it, but they know it's up front that you get, X number of rounds, which usually is 2. And then after that, then we start billing. And luckily I have some clients that, they will actually say to me, okay, I know that I have to pay for it, but I want to do another round of revisions. Okay, that's fine. As long as you're aware. So
I think 2 is
Great.
very much standard, right? And for us, I think a lot of the time, before we even get to revision, or even before presenting a design, I like to make sure that we really are aligned with the client, just so that there are no surprises when it comes to design. So for example, when we work on any web project, what we typically do is that we make sure that the sitemap, user flow, as well as the the right persona and Stylescape for this particular project is being presented. Stylescape that I'm referring here is mainly around like how is the general interface or the general design for the website is going to look, meaning like what the button's gonna look like, what the the hero treatment is gonna look like, some of the banners and things like that. So at least they get a sense in terms of like how is the general design going to look like without even getting into the actual design pages. So once all of those are approved, we're ready to go. We're just need to translate the wireframes and the low fidelity or the sketches into the actual design and flush all of those pretty things or the colors and everything else into the design.
Yeah, that's a good tip. Good tip. Thank you. For any audience have a question, make sure you put them in the chat. We have 2 questions already. So the Q&A session is coming up soon, guys. So keep the questions going. A couple more questions for the panelists on the hiring side. So for, any recommendation for entrepreneur and business owners, when they decide to hire a designer or a design agency, what kind of question they should be asking? Maybe from your perspective, can you share a couple of thoughts? Everyone,
Sure.
go ahead. Yeah. Max, go ahead.
I think a big part of it is the chemistry check. People can be taught. People can be taught programs. People can be taught design. They can be taught fundamentals. For me, a lot of it is whenever we bring on new people or new clients or anything like that, that chemistry check is super important because you're going to disagree. Just like Ari and Lydia sort of put out there, what happens when you get into round 7 of revisions and you're still hearing something of, it's not quite right. That's sort of when the true sort of client agency dynamic is tested. And you better like each other and be on the same page. Otherwise, you're going to come to blows real quick. So to me, a lot of it is just asking that person about sort of, what is your vision? What do you want to get out of this engagement? What are you passionate about? What do you not like? What do you like? So you can get a better feel for that person so that, you can pressure test the relationship so that when quite literally the pressure is on to deliver, hey, so-and-so is really solid and I can count on them and I know they're not going to crack under a deadline.
Yeah, that's a good insight. Thank you. Chemistry, pressure, definitely. Lydia, anything you want to add?
Yes, I totally agree with that. And I think that in that initial meeting, you can usually tell if there's chemistry. And I know with most of my clients, there's been the occasional client where you just kind of feel like, oh, this is just not a good fit. Usually it's mutual where you can kind of sense it, that it's not going to work out. But I also like to assess working style. So, knowing that from my side, knowing that the client will be supplying things, in an organized manner. Will you be supplying final drafts of copy? Will all of your images be high res? Just knowing that they're organized, they're aware of some of these, things that will make the process go smoother. And I think for them as well to know that I have a really strong focus on project management. So I'm very big on setting those deadlines and, checking in, making sure we're hitting the deadlines, especially if things are going to print. So I think knowing that you're both on the same page from an organizational stand as well as process, so that things don't kind of fall through the cracks along the way.
Yeah.
Just to kind of add to that one, I think the chemistry one is really big with us as well. The next thing that I feel is also important is, check the process, right? If you are going to work with either a freelancer or a small agency or studio for design and branding, check if they have a good system in place or like a process that you can at least set expectation for yourself and for themselves as well. I mean, for the other person. And then I guess in a sense, like making sure that expectations are communicated clearly in terms of like where you want it to go and what you expect them to do. And how do you really, how are you going to work alongside with them? Are you going to let them run everything themselves, or are you going to be participating or art directing and things like that, just to kind of make sure that everybody don't get any surprises in the middle. And I think it's really interesting because you definitely want to work with someone that you like, just like what Max already mentioned, and obviously respectful of one another, because they have the power of either, work with you or also fire you as well as a client. So it's just equal.
A follow-up question from me, for myself, is when would you decide to fire a client? Like what triggers? Just curious.
Oh man.
I think knowing who to bring on and knowing who to kick out the bus is super important, right? As a designer, as an agency. So what are your thoughts?
I think for me, like in the past, from my experience, it was just too much. From the one client that we had in the past, is that we were offering so much value, yet this one client just kept pushing for more. I think, you're really trying to maintain this relationship, but something has to give, right? If you just can't go on anymore, it's just not, exciting anymore to work with someone. What's the point for that? I mean, you're creating this business on your own, this agency, or you may be freelancing on your own. You're creating this particular path for your career and your lifestyle because you have the option. So if you don't want to work with those type of people anymore, just part ways. I mean, like, it's not gonna do anyone any good. So hopefully and hopefully nobody else is gonna experience that.
Max, Lydia, do you have anything to add about firing a client? Don't name any name, don't name any company.
Yeah, right. Let me tell you about this guy. Yeah, I mean, this doesn't mean to sound sort of callous or anything, but I'm very quick to sort of end engagements with clients for two reasons. Number one is when it starts to not be beneficial anymore, you feel it, right? You get a phone call from them and you're like, you see the caller ID pop up, or things feel strange. You're going to feel it. You're going to know that something has changed. But, at that point, you also have to remember that, you are running a business, and the downside is that time is binary. If you're accepting and working on this project, you have to say no to this project because you simply don't have the time to do both. So to me, you know, there's plenty of red flags, but part of it is remembering and saying like, hey, you know what, I just don't think this is working out anymore. You know, still be helpful. Don't be a jerk about it, but, you know, just say, you know, this was a, you know, good experience, whatever, you know, let's part ways as friends, that sort of thing. I even had to do that with a family friend who was a client. And that's awkward, as you can imagine, but you got to do it sometimes.
Yeah.
Big tip, don't work with the best friend, right?
Yeah,
That's
Or
right.
family member.
True.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah.
I agree. A lot of what Max and Ari said has definitely resonated. And I think a lot of it comes down to, again, the gut feeling. Like Max was saying, like if you just, you know, get an email from them and you're like, oh, no, not again, you know, or also just being true to yourself, you know. So like I realized I don't want to do those one-off projects anymore, because usually what's, you know, considered like, oh, this is just going to be a quick project, just drags on and on. And I told myself, well, I just won't take that type of work anymore. It's not right for me and my business. And instead of, you know, I don't consider it like firing that client, but instead I've referred them to somebody else, to another designer that specializes in this type of work or is looking for work right now. So it's really not, you know, necessarily like firing, but just realizing that this is not a fit maybe anymore. And I can refer them to somebody else, you know, so that they can still get what they need, but it just may not be the right fit for me anymore at this moment.
Maybe there's an agency out there to specialize to deal with difficult clients. That's
Yes.
the specialty. That's super interesting. I have one question I want to ask on behalf of entrepreneurs out there. People that are building businesses, they need all kinds of designers. And the fact that designer is such a broad term, right? So imagine somebody trying to build a business. They want to build an app, a website, banners, maybe some campaign ads. Do they need to really hire a designer for each discipline? You know, UI, UX, web app, print ads. Well, there are a lot of people out there advertise they can design all of it, right? Like, how should an entrepreneur look at this and decide what to do? You guys coming from design agency, studio background, what's your thoughts on something like that?
Well,
Go ahead,
oh,
Max.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I think for me, I would recommend hire something specific or someone specific on their particular skills. And I would also like look at like, what is your ultimate goal? If you're really working on, say, like a product design for either an app or things like that, definitely hire UI UX designer or a product designer for that, right? And if you really want to refine your brand, definitely find either a brand strategist or brand designer. Or graphic designer, and combine, you know, brand strategist and graphic designer together. I think if you're trying to find, you know, these unicorns designer, it's not really a good idea, mainly because their I think expertise is not really anywhere, right? They have some foundation about design, but they're probably not going to create the best design or like the best approach for your business. So I think if you really are looking for the best value and to invest back into your business, find a very specific designer that you need. If you need a help around logo, find a brand designer. And then if you need help around maybe like social media things, find someone that can really do a ton of like social media posts or like templates, or maybe like a social media designers and stuff like that. So that type of thing.
Good point. Lydia, Max, do you guys want to add anything?
Yes, I agree, you know, pretty much with the way that Ari's outlined it. So like in my case, you know, say working with nonprofits, I end up partnering or collaborating with other people that have those other skills. So maybe we're working on a project that involves branding, fundraising, other aspects, program design. So I will partner with other people that maybe have a specialty in fundraising or in program development. And we all come together as one unit to provide kind of a, like a whole package, because I think there's definitely something to be said to have it consistent. But I think, it's tough, like Ari said, that unicorn, finding one person who can do it all really makes me skeptical. Like, how well can they do it all? Like, I don't even want to do it all. So I think having a team that can achieve all of your goals, that's working together, is great. Like, what I don't like is when someone comes to me and then they say, oh, well, I have this other partner and they'll be doing this portion of the project, and we're working independently. So I prefer to have a team, put together a team, and then we can work on it together and maintain the consistency in the branding and the marketing.
That's great. Max, do you agree?
Yeah, don't worry, the analogy part of my brain just fired back up. So we're good, everybody. I like to phrase it up, and when I do consult with businesses who are in this exact same situation, I always say, you need to find a quarterback. You are the coach. You need to find a quarterback where, kind of meshing together Lydia and Ari's responses, ask yourself, what is the high priority thing? Hire the best for that. And in the back of your head, ask yourself, okay, do they seem like they know a lot of people? Do they seem connected? Because, if you find the right fit to start solving the project, let's say you are developing your brand identity and sort of your brand positioning and that sort of thing. If you find the right partner and all of a sudden it goes to, oh, we need to build our website, app, whatever, the immediate response is going to be, oh yeah, I know a guy, or I know this person, or I know this vendor who I've worked with in the past who can help you do this. And now all of a sudden you have a quarterback. You have somebody who can act as sort of like a central hub and an ally to a partner, essentially, on the creative side to help keep all those things moving, because you are trying to put together quite literally a team of experts of UX, UI, writing, design, strategy, all that sort of stuff. And managing all of that is what a creative director does, and that's a job in and of itself.
Yeah, I like the quarterback analogy too. That makes total sense. So we're gonna open up the floor to the audience. We have some question here. I can scan through these. Ari, do you want to open mic for anybody to speak from the audience side, or how do you want to do it?
I believe everyone who wanted to ask questions can, unmute yourself.
All right. So, and Anthony, are you online?
Yeah, Antoine.
Antoine, hey, do you want to ask a question? We're good to hear your voice too.
Yeah, it's obviously written, but my question is, I think definitely when we think about branding, we focus a lot on the visual aspect. But my question more so revolves around, how do we innovate the design when it comes to the business process? And, is process design always necessary to stand out? Or are there certain instances in which, it's better to go with maybe the industry standard?
Any of panelists want to take on this?
Sure. Yeah, I think there are plenty of times where industry standard or good enough is good enough. But the thing that I would say, and we use the term design obviously kind of loosely, but really it's just creative problem solving, right? And it's just putting rationale behind your decision making. To me, what I would say is, regardless of if it's something brand new that you're creating or it's sort of your industry standard business as usual, whatever that execution is, always ask yourself, how do we do it in our way, right? If you're XYZ company, how do we do a newsletter our way, right? And that's how, even if you're doing sort of basic industry stuff, you're at least putting your own little twist on it where it's unique to you.
Yeah,
Yes,
thanks.
Sorry. I just wanted to jump in to say that I agree with what Max was saying. I think that this kind of reminds me of my client that I mentioned that's in manufacturing, and they could have stayed with the industry standard, you know, sending out just a flyer to their customers, but instead they really wanted to use design to elevate their presence, elevate their marketing, and stand out. And they really have. You know, he's told me like, wow, people are commenting like, we've never seen this before, you know, from shoe care manufacturers and distributors. And so I think that, you know, it all boils down to goals. And that's one of the things when I work with both, you know, organizations, nonprofits, or small businesses, it's goals. You know, what are those strategic goals for your company? And how are we using that to translate into your design goals, your branding goals, making sure that it all aligns. And that, you know, maybe maybe doing something wild and crazy is not going to align with your goals. But if one of your goals is to be more of an innovator in the industry, which was the case with my client, you know, we went for it and we elevated their marketing materials. So I think starting with those business goals is really crucial.
Good thought. Ari, anything you want to add?
They capture it beautifully.
Yeah. So one thing I can think of is usually I approach being, you know, on a standard sign or unique identifier is, you know, pick one thing to break and don't pick all the rules. I'll pick that one rule that you can break and make it better, more unique, or more attention getting, more remarkable. Breaking all the rules seems kind of crazy. It doesn't really work that well in my experience. So yeah, pick something that you can actually work for the brand and speak for the brand mission or vision that usually works really well too. Let's go through here. So I know, okay, so this person left. Let's see. JP, how are you doing? JP, you want to unmute and then ask your questions?
Yeah, so my question was, if you're working in-house or for another agency, what are kind of the steps needed to be taken to actually launching your own agency? Obviously, time like now, COVID out, it's a little bit different, but if that wasn't really in play right now, what were the kind of steps you guys would take in the past to actually launch your agency successfully?
I feel like Max can take this.
Yeah, I mean, so I essentially built 87 at the same time I was working at a couple agencies here in Chicago, Laughlin Constable and Havas. There's a couple things that really helped me understand and position myself in a place where I could leave. The first is, you know, for as good as your talents are, what makes or breaks a business is the business side of things, right? So you're going to get better at After Effects, Illustrator, whatever sort of your tool or skill set is, you're going to continue to get better. The thing that I would really push people to do is to understand the sort of fundamental business dynamics of what you're going into. I was a AIGA mentor for this exact thing, right? Creative entrepreneurship. For as creative as we are, we really suck at solving our own problems. So you really should think about your business as almost like a separate client. How do you make money? How do you position that client, which is really you, in a place where you can get that business going? The other sort of nugget of wisdom I could say is think about your current day job as they're paying your sort of fundraising. They're your seed round of earning capital, right? That weekly paycheck, they're paying you to start your startup. So stay there as long as you can until your side hustle income overtakes your everyday income. And this way you're going out into the world not with a completely empty net. It's not as scary anymore, but that's a very smart, patient way to go about it, but understand the business aspect of it for sure.
Yes, I totally agree with what Max said. In fact, I started out my career, I was an intern at a small design studio and then ended up working there full time. And I still to this day say, you know, I learned everything I needed to know working in this small design studio. I learned how to do the bookkeeping. I learned how to do the invoicing. I mean, these are the non-sexy things that will be taking up a big part of your day. And so I think if you can absorb as much as you can from your work environment and try to learn as much about that process and try to like the process. I will admit that I loved the bookkeeping and the reconciling, and now I have QuickBooks Online and it's all automatic, but I embraced it, you know, and I enjoyed it. And I liked the marketing process and the prospecting. So it's kind of good to kind of, you know, even if it doesn't feel natural to you, just try to embrace it and learn as much as you can about it. And the more you can put systems into place, the better off you'll be. So whether it's, you know, getting QuickBooks Online for your bookkeeping, getting a time tracker, getting an invoicing app, having systems in place, you know, and it took me a while to get to this place, but having those systems really helps to focus less on the business side of things, you know, and more on the creative side, which is what you want to do.
Yeah. Thanks, Lydia. Ari, anything you want to add to this?
No, I think they got it all. I feel like all of those are good tips.
I know. At the breakout session, Valerie, you're still here. That we discussed for designer, how do you usually justify the value of design in terms of, you know, business or dollar sign, right? When you're pitching a service or business, there's a value to what you do, but not all business owners see the same way, right? So, are there any, I guess, insights or tips that when you pitch to a new client or even existing client, let them see the value of your work? What makes it easier for a lot of the kind of rookie designer or first time freelancers? You know, they might have struggled that a little bit more.
I think, you know, we had talked earlier about some of these case studies that I had with my clients.
Yeah.
So I think as early as you can, I know if you're brand new, you know, you may not have these case studies or examples of ROI, but get into the habit of asking your clients, you know, how did this campaign do? You know, did you get new business out of it? You know, for me, I'll be asking my clients, you know, did you increase your donors? How much money did you pull in? How many new members have you brought in? But it, you know, you could also just ask, like, how successful was the campaign? You know, get into the habit of asking these questions. At the end of the project, you know, you can send them a questionnaire, you can call them, and start building up your portfolio of ROI that you can then share with other clients. So in addition to seeing your work that is impressive, you can say, well, this annual report was their best annual report in the organization's history, you know. So try to ask those questions and then, you know, put it in, like, I use Evernote. I keep a file in Evernote and just, you know, with that ROI, with those results for each project. And then you can refer back to it when you have that client that's a little, you know, on the fence.
That makes sense.
I think getting into the habit of really asking the right question is the key here, right? I feel like when I look at my past self, when I start in design, I don't really ask questions. I just like, okay, you tell me what to do, I'll do it. And that is not a good way to start a long time career. I feel like you definitely need to learn about the business side of things, just like what Max mentioned, because you are the problem solver. They are coming to you for your expertise, and they really are looking up to you in terms of, like, can you help me find the solution for this? If they really want to just find someone to edit something and become a editor, if that's really what you want to do, then hey, that's perfectly fine. But if you really want to be a very important asset for your client, then ask the right questions. Like, you know, how are we going to measure this success of the project? Like, what do you really want to do for, you know, the business? And then in terms of, like, revenue goals, what are we really targeting? How are we going to get there? What is the priority that you really want to achieve right now? So I think, you know, asking the right question is definitely a really good exercise to do. If you can start doing that right away, that would be great. Avoiding questionnaire would be awesome as well. I know that could really simplify things, but people really do want to talk to you, right? They want to hear the other side of the person they are trying to hire or these other people, and get insights right away. They want to understand and feel that, okay, you make me feel assured. You make me feel like I know what I'm doing. You make me feel guided. I think that's what they really want. And it's your job to really just be that one person that they can really trust from the very beginning.
Yeah, asking the right questions. Absolutely.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I mean, part of it is you have to basically run your system on yourself, right? The person sitting across the table from you, you may call them client, they're still a customer. You have a thing that you're offering, and you're asking for money in return. So just like what we do with brands and everything, trying to figure out how do we uniquely solve the customer's problem. How do we uniquely solve the customer's problem? Learn to speak their language. Like Lydia was saying, case studies, right? They're not just there as a writing experiment of how good can you summarize this 6-month effort of work. It's how we do it is, this is the situation, here's the story, here's our solutions that we presented to solve the client's problems, and here's the results. Because at the end of the day, a business owner, that's what they care about. They really don't care about what shade of blue you're really hyped about this month. It's how can you directly bring value to my business? And then how do I flip that and turn that into some sort of financial gain?
Yeah. Let me ask you guys a follow-up question. When it comes to pricing for design, is notoriously fragmented, right? You have people that freelancing for $10 per hour somewhere in the world. You have really high-end agency charging, I don't even know, thousands of dollars. When do you know you're charging too much? When do you know you're charging too little? Like that's, I always have trouble with that. So how do you guys solve that problem? Or are you still solving it as we speak?
Yes, always solving. I think there's a couple things I like it when someone comes to me and says, well, you were not the cheapest price, but you were also not the most extravagant price, because you don't necessarily want to be the cheapest one or the most expensive one. You really do, want to be in a place where you're comfortable. And for me, it's that comfort level. Like, do I feel comfortable with this number? If I don't, if I feel like I'm lowering it because of this client, then it's not the right fit. And the bottom line is that sometimes projects are not the right fit, and you'll never come to an agreement. So like I said, I feel like in general, I do have people tell me, well, it was a little higher than I thought. And I think, well, that's good. I don't want them to just say like, woohoo, that's cheap, So you want to make sure that there's a value that is associated with it, where maybe they do think, oh boy, this is a little bit more than I wanted to spend, but I see the value in it, and therefore I will spend it.
Yeah, oh, sorry, go ahead, Ari.
Go ahead, you go first.
All right. Yeah, I think that's spot on, right? It's not so much design, but it's what is the value you bring to the table. I don't know about, the other folks in the room, but coming from someone with a bit more of like the business background, presentation, sort of having a little bit more of those high stakes conversations with clients, I love it. Oh my gosh, I love getting into it when a client comes back and they say, whoa, you're too expensive. Ooh, that just excites me, because now we get to have a conversation about how big it really is this problem that you have. And the pricing in general, I think, intimidates people a lot, but really once you sort of embrace what it truly is, it kind of becomes your best tool, because it allows you to put up a filter of, do I really want this client or not? If you can't meet my minimum level of engagement, then you're probably not a big enough fish for me. On the flip side, you have some clients that absolutely surprise you when you throw bananas number out there, and they're like, yeah, okay, cool. And once you start to get into the groove of understanding that pricing is chess, not checkers, you get to start to have a little bit of fun with it, because now all of a sudden you're hustling. I mean, hence the poster, hustle. You're hustling to make a deal, and now you're in the world of sales. And now the question is, how good can you be? Because that's the difference between a $20,000 engagement and a $50,000 engagement with the exact same client.
Spot on. I love the hustle too.
Yeah,
Ari?
totally agree on that one. Just gonna wrap up really quick from that question. I think on its own, pricing is a sales strategy, right? And I think when it comes to creating a proposal on our end, we typically offers 3 options. So whatever that we talk about during the first initial conversation, we capture them in the first option. And then if we feel that they do have a plan to expand in the future, or even like considering more advanced, I don't know, like either features for the websites, or even like where they can see themselves grow, we would add that into, so that they can at least know there are room to grow. There are possibility to go just beyond what we just talked about. And if you'd like to do that, they can go select like the higher number if they want it right now. But it's really just to kind of show that we can meet at where they are, but we also see the value that we are bringing in case they want to also, grow at the same time, and just like focusing on that growth right away with the right type of investment. So yeah, it is definitely a sales strategy on its own. I think the sooner that you get comfortable around like pricing yourself and, understanding how you can bring value and know that you are worth it, obviously. And yeah, I think it's just a matter of just like finding that one particular clients that really can be a good fit for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that concludes our time for our events. Thank you for joining the event, Driving Business Through Design. Thank you, our 3 rockstar panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you
This was
everyone for
wonderful.
coming.